Before we begin the first meeting agenda this evening, I'd like to defer to Chairman Eugene Wesley to make a comment regarding Oak Street questions.
All the discussion for the Oak Street sidewalk will not take place tonight at all. It's not on the agenda, so we cannot address that. So if you are here for Oak Street sidewalk, you're more than welcome to stick around for the meeting and see what we do, but as of right now, it will not be discussed tonight at all. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will call to order the... Oh, give you guys a chance to leave if you want to. Okay, I will call to order the April 22nd, 2010 Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee meeting. Will the minute taker please call the roll?
Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Cadella.
Here.
Alderman Police.
Here.
Alderman Coles.
Here.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Lewitton.
Here.
We have a quorum present. Next item, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 2010 meeting. Is there such a motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain. And the next item is a presentation on the Wooddale Station condominiums. Mr. John Forrest, would you like to introduce our presenter this evening and take it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, with me this evening is Kevin Thornton. He's with Wright Development. They are the developers that have been working on the project that we know as Wooddale Station. It's the condominium buildings on the old Giorgio's property. And as I said in the memo, staff has been in contact with Wright Development. We've had a couple of meetings in the office about a conceptual change in the marketing and proposed occupancy of buildings 2 and 3 of the approved plan unit development. The attached correspondence from Wright Development sort of lays out what it is they would like to do. It's the opinion of staff that these changes do constitute a substantial change in character and would thus affect the ordinance that approved the PUD. After Mr. Thornton's presentation, of course, I'm sure he can answer any questions and maybe review some of the comments in his letter, but I think at this point he's just sort of looking for some conceptual approval by the City Council to move in that direction. I have done some research over the last several days because I had an interesting thought. I mean, we know that everybody likes to get involved in litigation these days, and we know that there are sometimes cases brought with age discrimination. And I was curious as to whether any of these senior living communities have ever experienced a lawsuit from age discrimination from somebody younger that might have wanted to move into the community. I talked to the Lisa Madigan's office and Capital Development Board. Nobody could seem to give me an answer, so I did talk to one of the executives from Luther Village, which is probably one of the older independent living seniors housing developments there in Arlington Heights. And it was interesting. She told me that assisted and independent senior living communities are the only age-restricted communities allowed under the Fair Housing Act. So you actually can set up a community like this, and as far as just age discrimination, you can't really be liable for that. With that, I guess I will let Kevin do his presentation, and then we can answer some questions.
Hello, thank you for hearing me out tonight. What we're proposing in buildings 2 and 3 at Wooddale Station is to remain as a condominium use, however, go to an age-restrictive market rate rental or senior independent rental condominiums. What we're looking to do is not change the exterior of the buildings whatsoever from our last presentation in here. However, we would like to have a little bit of flexibility in the number, not the number of units, but the number of bedrooms and bathrooms would remain the same. Right now, buildings 2 and 3 are planned for 90 2-bedroom, 2-bath condominium units. A lot of times in senior housing, you find a lot of people will just want one bedroom, one bath. They don't want a larger unit because it's just more to clean. What we were proposing is to stay with the original 80 bedrooms and bathrooms in Building 2 and 100 bedrooms and bathrooms in Building 3, but it would be a combination of 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, and 2 bedroom, 1 bath units, depending on our market studies and our pre-sales, our pre-rentals. We also have some demographic information that we're still pulling together and some marketing that we will need to come up with we think, a valid mix that would make the project successful. But we're not looking to add any bedrooms and actually will decrease the number of bathrooms in the total buildings in Buildings 2 and 3. We'd still remain, the first floor would remain retail, however, 50 to 60%, and again, we don't have that figured out yet because we need to do some more marketing, but some of the 50 to 60% of the first floor retail would be dedicated for the senior living use. For example, a reception area, a craft area. We're actually going to do a meal plan that will be restaurant service food. Our idea is to have a restaurant in the building, and we would have 2 dining rooms. One would be only for the residents, and one would be an open dining room, not only for the public, but for any of the seniors. If their grandkids, great-grandkids come over, they've got a room to go to have dinner with everybody, rather than kids kind of running around amongst the elderly residents and another. But we would have a restaurant in there that would service that, as well as some other services. So we'd have 40 to 50% of the retail on the first floor would be open to the public and would be services that would be for the seniors, but also for the public at large. We are also looking to add additional asphalt walking paths on the south and east property lines so we can enhance the foot traffic to the metro station. Obviously, we can't go all the way to the metro station, but we're looking to at least add it from the sidewalk that's along Irving Park, along the east property line, north to south, and then another asphalt path along the back side of the property to our property line. We're trying to create a loop, but also have an area where people can walk, and eventually, hopefully, down the road, a tie-in so people can go to the metro station without having to walk along Irving Park Road. The other thing that we're looking to do in Building 3 is offer and/or develop a partnership with the City of Wooddale on a dial-a-ride services. We initially were going to add a shuttle that was going to be dedicated for people who live there. I understand that you already have a dial-a-ride service here, and we think that we can work out a partnership that can be very beneficial. We feel most of our residents won't be driving. They're going to want this shuttle to take them to Jewel, Dominic's, maybe to the mall once in a while, but to Target, but a lot of the local places. And we think we can work out something with the city on a dial-a-ride where that would really benefit both parties. Again, the prior elevation change that we've requested and approved will remain the same. The height, the footprints of the buildings, the site layouts, the bedroom density, and overall use, meaning commercial on the first floor and residential on the second through sixth floors, would remain exactly the same. The other thing that we may ask for down the road, but we have to get our marketing studies done, is a request in the decrease of the number of parking spaces. Right now we have a lot of parking. It's almost all asphalt. And we think that our parking, and usually in senior housing, is not 2 to 1. It's usually 1 to 1 or even a half to 1, because a lot of seniors either don't drive or they might have one car in the unit. But we want to create more green space, especially on the south side of the property. Right now it's going to be an asphalt jungle, basically. And once we get our marketing studies done, if we can decrease the parking, we would like to decrease parking in order to add more green space and more garden area. The roof work that we had planned for Building 1 is still planned for late this spring, and as weather will permit, and we can get the plans completed and then go in for permits. Again, that we believe the clarifications that we're asking for is not it might be a substantial use change. However, we feel it's still retail on the first floor, residential on the second through sixth floor. It's just we're looking to do age restrictive, because everybody knows right now with the condominium market the way it is right now that market is just not moving. And with that, I'd just like to entertain any questions that you may have.
My first question is to Mr. Thornton. What kind of a guarantee can you give, and how good is such a guarantee that this plan for senior housing will still be senior housing in 5, 10, 25 years? And I don't want this next statement to be construed as, as anything other than, a question and a concern, but I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with one-bedroom units that could be, whether, condos or apartments or whatever, for uses other than, for senior independent living. What happens in, in a year or 2 or 5 if the project isn't working out to, to your organization's plans, or something changes in the future? I personally, I'm comfortable with the concept, and I think I'm comfortable with the changes that you're talking about proposing, and I'm definitely going to want to pull the council up here. But I'm concerned, how do we eliminate any possibility of a use change in the future? Or maybe that question also can go to Mr. Forrest after you've had an opportunity to speak.
I can't obviously guarantee what's in the future, other than all demographics point to baby boomers are aging. If anything, all indications are we are going to have a severe housing shortage for senior living. And the units will be constructed. By the way, we are looking right now to design every unit to be handicap accessible. We feel that's really a marketing necessity. From that standpoint, I can't make any guarantees other than it will make more financial sense for anybody else who might, if we do sell the property in 5, 10 years, it'll make more financial sense for them to keep it as senior housing than to switch it to a standard market rental, because standard market rental rates are quite a bit lower than senior housing with the amenities that we're looking to add.
Mr. Forrest, anything to add? Any experience on this subject?
Not really, Mr. Chairman. I'm not an expert on condominium law. That might be something we would want to run by the city attorney. But again, I think that the senior living, has to be laid out. It has to be set up by documents. And it's my understanding the buildings or the units are still going to remain condominiums, but they will basically be owned by one entity. And again, this is a city attorney question, but I don't know if there could be some sort of wording in the covenants or in the agreements that say if the property is going to change from rental housing, it goes back to condominiums, openly marketed to the public, as opposed to becoming an apartment building, something like that. Again, in reviewing, the reason staff wanted to bring this, to the committee, it was our opinion that even though, again, conceptually it sounds like a very good idea to us as well, if you agree that these would be substantial changes in character to Ordinance 0513, which was the special use permit for the planned unit development, it would need to go back to the zoning board and then come back to you as committee and then go to council as well. We would have to amend the existing ordinance with that.
Well, it's my personal opinion to concur with you. I think this is a significant enough change in use, albeit a valiant one. But I think there are other questions here with the PUD, which sets up some very specific standards with the number of units, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the quantity of parking. I understand a demographic for the new proposed usage in and of itself can show proof that it doesn't need as much parking, but I don't know that we have a zoning or parking construction ordinance that automatically can alleviate without a variance. So it would be my first thought that, yeah, I think Mr. Thornton should go back to the ZBA Plan Commission, but perhaps if the other members of this committee here this evening would like to give their first thought opinion, is conceptually, is this something we would accept? So Mr. Thornton knows, going back to ZBA, we're prepared to strongly consider this, but I would make a recommendation that any changes to the PUD be addressed at that same time at the ZBA, rather than sending you back there again after you've been through the whole process.
That's our goal, to at least have a conceptual. We're close to having some financing put together for both buildings, and one of the covenants of financing is to at least get an approval of the city that conceptually that senior living would work. And then obviously we'd know that we would have to do some more studies and be able to prove out on some other things. But like I said, we're not looking to change the height, the overall character of the buildings, and the number of bedrooms would remain exactly the same as we have right now. It's just the mix of units is we're asking that, at least conceptually, that senior housing would be an acceptable use.
Okay, thank you. If anybody has any questions, Alderman Lewitton and then Alderman Wesley.
I want to see if I understand this correctly. It's going to be a condominium, is that correct?
One entity would own all condominiums, but they would be rental. So it may be Wooddale Station Senior Living would own the condominium building, but rent out each unit. It'd be rental units for senior living.
Okay, so if there are 50 units in one building, will they each have a PIN number?
No, it'll be as an apartment, it'll be one PIN would be the building. And
Then
the
how
tax
can you
rate-
call it a condominium if there's only one PIN? A condominium is an ownership of a unit. A unit is defined as a taxable entity. The taxable entity is given a tax PIN number, as every homeowner knows. So how can you call it a condominium and structure it that way if there isn't a PIN number for every unit?
We can, if it would be acceptable, we could go to a PIN for every unit and just have the ownership of every unit be the main entity. That's the easy way to handle that.
It makes sense,
That's common.
because someday, maybe not, but possibly someday, you may sell a unit. And how can you sell the unit if it can't be distinguished as an individual tax PIN number? Unless you want to pay the taxes for the people.
We will structure it that way.
Okay. Now, how are you going to assess the association dues? Because we have an association that basically has failed and gone into bankruptcy in Wooddale. They had no reserves. You know, debt is a very bad animal. How are you going to structure the assessments on the units, even though there's one entity paying them? Where is the escrow account for the association dues? Or not, where is it? You can go to any bank. How are you going to structure it that it will always have a positive balance to take care of major repairs down the road? New roof in 25 years, water main breakage, if that occurs, to have that. How are you going to structure the financial arrangement of the dues?
Well, we won't have individual units pay individual separate dues. We will have a general capital fund that the buildings, the property will have to have as an operating unit. We'll have some very large operational expenses because we are going to be running food services, et cetera, for the residents there. So we will have to have a capital fund as part of our operational plan.
And will there be...
Alderman Lewitton, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think that you're asking questions that are more in general about condominium management, which if Mr. Thornton were not looking to make any changes, he'd still be able to build the next two buildings as condos. So I think we have a lot on the agenda this evening. So if
I
this
will
is
leave
going
the
somewhere
floor back to you, and I just don't want another Wooddale place.
I couldn't agree more. I think these are all good points, and I think we should follow up on them. But thank you, Alderman Eugene Wesley.
My opinion, I think it's a great idea. The only drawback, I will tell you, the only drawback that I have on it, John, tell me if it's going to fall under our jurisdiction. If they do make them rental, okay, does that still fall under our rental inspections? And then the other concern I have is I'm a little hesitating about giving the blessing for this whole project, but it's a great project. I'm just worried that we go ahead and approve this down the line, that you guys want to do this. And John summed it all up. We give the variance, the planning and zoning board, and it comes to us, and we give a variance for your parking, reducing the parking, and all of a sudden now we went to rentals. How do we get that parking back? And I agree with John in that perspective. There's got to be something that's got to be kind of guaranteed that. That's a drawback I have. We always, any developer comes here and asks for parking variance, and they have to obey by that rule too. But I think it's a good idea, believe me, I really do. Those are my two sticking points right now. My other sticking point is what are we doing with that other unit that you have there now? Is that part of it? Are you going to turn those in senior living if you do not sell those? Or are you going to keep trying to
No,
sell?
we will continue until we do sell them eventually, maybe hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, once the economy improves, but we will not convert Building 1 to senior living. It's not our goal to change that over. Even though I'd say most of our permanent residents there are over 55, we're not looking to change that. We will continue to sell them until they are finally sold. But to answer your question on the parking, we do know we'd have to come back to you, with some good studies. And, a long time ago when I worked for an apartment builder, we've actually looked at senior living facilities. And one of the expenses that we had, as well as getting the rezoning, was adding parking. We're not going to, take this space away necessarily, other than our idea is just to try to green up the backside. If you've ever seen the site plan of buildings 2 and 3, like I said, it's a very large parking lot over the water retention. Our idea was, if we can decrease some of the parking, we would try to do that. But obviously, we'd have to come back with some studies that will show. And I think most zoning laws call for, if it is zoned senior housing, the parking is usually changed to 1-to-1. Or
Okay.
even 1/2-to-1.
Let me do a follow-up on that.
Sure.
Okay, say it does not go senior housing and it flips. I mean, you don't get rid of all the buildings and that, and it goes back to rental. Are your company in favor of the green that you put in? Will you guys yank that out and put the parking back in if it went that way?
If we had to, yes, we'd have to do that. I mean, we'd
Would
rather
you-
not.
Would you consider that if we approve this down the line?
Sure, I mean, because I think we would have to agree to any changes if we changed it back to to condominium. We'd have to change it back no matter what. We're fine with that,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes, thank you. I think Alderman Wesley made a great point, but as I recall in our conversations, the underground parking is going to stay the same. If you were going to make some variations on the parking, it would probably be the exterior spaces. The surface spaces, which could, at some point in time, if the need occurred, could be reestablished.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Coles?
All he's looking for right now is an okay by the council, so he has something to go back to tell his people that we'll okay it. And that's what you're looking for right now.
Right, just a
The
conceptual
changes, the
agreement.
changes will have to be done when it goes through the committees and it comes back to us, and we'll have changes, and the building department's gonna have changes, and you'll have changes. And all you're looking for now is sort of an okay that you can get this thing started. That's what he's
Correct.
looking for. So why don't we take a vote? And I'll make a motion that we, give him an okay to get the thing, running. Go back to CPA. And, go back to CPA, and let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Do I hear a second?
I don't want to make this a motion. I'd rather take this as a more of not a policy, but a direction, rather than a vote and a roll call. I don't want it to be that official. I think I think general consensus is more appropriate because we do not have this on the agenda as a report and recommendation. It's only a presentation.
All right.
I think it'd be more appropriate to let Mr. Thornton know that a majority of us, if not all of us, are in favor. And before I ask everyone's opinion, I think Alderman Police has a comment, and then we're going to move on, and then the mayor after him.
Basically, Alderman Wesley asked about rental inspections. I didn't hear an answer on that.
Since this would be the first of a kind, my gut response is yes. If it's rental properties, they would be subject to the rental inspections. But I would want to go back and review the rental ordinance just to be positive.
Mayor?
Difficult question. Was the $50,000 cash contribution to the city, was that ever resolved?
No, we actually need to sit down and we go over all the contributions. That's something that we do need to do here very soon. We're just at the point, like I said, we want to at least, knowing that if we can go forward with at least a little different take on what we've already had approved, we do need to get into that soon.
Soon.
Excellent point, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else, or can I go ahead and poll this? Basically, is anybody opposed to the concept? Okay, that's your direction. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, another one for Mr. Forrest to handle for us, a report and recommendation on shop QA.
What about number 5?
What happened to 5?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Sorry about that. Sorry, John. I jumped too far ahead. Report and recommendation, a letter of credit reduction request for Georgetown Street Townhomes of Wooddale, LLC.
Correct, yes. You have your report from Dave Graff, the city engineer, who has reviewed the as-built plans and been out at the site. I was also out at the site quickly just to take a look at some of the things. And yeah, I don't see any issue. We will still be holding on to, I believe, $69,000. Yes, $69,789.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Question, John, I did drive over there. They still got one more building built, don't they?
Correct.
So when will that be built?
They haven't given me any indication when they're going to go forward with that. It's my understanding they still have several vacant units over there, although they have started selling some. I think they've sold, in the last 6 or 8 weeks or so, they've sold 2 more units. So they are starting to pick up a little bit.
So you're asking to reduce the credit, will that be enough to make sure they do that last building the correct way, or is that going to be, is he planning on building that last building?
I believe they are, yes.
Well, see,
Yeah,
that's the problem I have here, reducing the credit. Because if he ain't going to tell me that for sure he's building that last building, that looks like eyesore. Okay? So we reduce his credit, and all of a sudden, the comedy's bad. All of a sudden, you decide, goodbye, I'm gone, I'm going to leave that vacant lot. I have a concern about that. Because a lot of people look at that empty lot and all those apartments.
Right.
I know I'm not, I know it's Dan and Christine's ward, but I looked at it. I like to hear what Ward 2, and I like to hear what they think of it. I'm not in favor of reducing it because $69,000, I don't know if that's going to be enough to cover it. If the guy bails, I mean, I got a vacant piece of property that this council approved, and I can't do that.
I mean, I believe what we're holding the bulk of money for is the public improvements. Those are pretty close to being complete for the whole subdivision. And when we do have one building that still needs to go up, I would have to defer that to the city engineer to maybe make a comment on. I don't. Stay here. Yeah.
Was a decorated light supposed to be put in there? I can't remember.
I would have to check, I can't remember.
Because I don't remember seeing decorated lights put in there.
Yeah, the letter of credit is supposed to be for public improvements only, or maybe to restore the site in the event that the developer defaulted, and, you know, $69,000 would be plenty for that. I don't believe the city would ever go in and do more than that, just restoration, cleaning up the site. But really, the only public improvements are the sidewalk and some erosion control and some landscaping restoration.
Again, John, in First Amendment, was a decorated prairie-style light supposed to be installed in it?
I would have to check and get back to you on that. Off the top of my head, I don't
So
know.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna approve a reduction of credit, which we don't know if those lights are in the plan or not. So he might have not followed the plan that was submitted to, and tell you the truth, this has been going on for several years. I don't know. I can't remember up here. So, again, I would like to probably take it to table and don't give final approval until it goes to council if they can get the information to us. I mean, my vote will be no right now, I'll tell you that.
I mean, we can get, you know, the answers to your questions and have those for the next meeting if you'd like. Or if you wanted to revise the amount that they're requesting to reduce it by, we could do that. But, you know, again, the bulk of this was for the public improvements which are in the sewer, the water, the fire hydrants, the storm sewer system, the detention pond, the fences up.
I've got a few thoughts on this, but I've got two other aldermen up here that want to speak first. Alderman Police and then Alderman Winger.
John, I believe you or Dave, one of you guys said that restoration to the property. So if they're not gonna build the other building, are they gonna level the dirt and put some seed down and grow some nice grass so it doesn't look like there was a bomb dropped on it?
Yeah, they have to do that, and that's part of the reason we're holding on to the $69,000 is to have some leverage over them to ensure
Well,
that they do that.
I'd like to have a little more leverage and let them do it now, before we, you know. Because otherwise, personally, I'd keep another 150,000. And I know it's not gonna take that much to level it off and make it look nice.
Alderman Winger.
I'd rather not approve of this tonight until we've gone back to the original list of commitments and ensure that each commitment is either addressed monetarily in our retainage or completed, so we know exactly what we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Roy Wesley.
John, didn't we, what's the subdivision over by Ethan Woods? Where they're building those homes? Didn't we ask for a reduction of credit over there before? And then we gave it to them, and now we're back to the same thing here, and they're doing nothing over there.
Well, we never reduced our letter of credit. They came forward. We had some issues that we wanted them to address, which they have not addressed, and they haven't come back to us, and their letter of credit is still in force at full amount.
Well, I think we should just hold on to the same thing, but if the council wants to, was that a motion to table over there? Or?
I have not heard such a motion yet. I will entertain what. Before we do that, I will like to hear from the mayor.
Just to clarify, I think Mr. Graff said it, but just to clarify, this bond has nothing to do with the construction of the last building. This is for the infrastructure improvements dedicated to the city of Wooddale, as I understand it. And just one other comment before you play too hardball with this guy. This is the owner of the property who dedicates and donates his property for parking for Prairie Fest. Same company. So, just so you're aware.
Well, we brought up two good points here this evening. One, I think we're all trying to remember, and nobody seems to be able to, if the decorative streetlights were a part of this PUD. And the other is how can we deal with this last vacant lot? So That being said, I don't want to play hardball necessarily either, but I'm concerned about moving forward until we have those two answers. Now, if the mayor's correct, and I have no doubt that he probably is, that this money being held back cannot be used for that lot, but I'd like that official, formal, final answer from staff and our attorneys. Does that sound adequate? Is that hopefully not hardball enough for everybody up here? Then I'm going to make a motion to table to the next committee with no other recommendation beyond that. Is there a second? Committee.
Second.
Council.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
2 opposed. Motion carries. Okay, now the next item on the agenda, I think I'll be right this time, is the report and recommendation on Shop QA. John Forrest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the last few weeks, we've continued some research, not only on this company, but in general about the concept as a whole. We've taken some polls of the businesses throughout the city. And I know the city attorney has some major issues with some terms of the contract. Personally, I had the opportunity to talk with a consultant that used to be in this line of work setting up these types of websites. I sort of went over some of the terms of the contract with him, and he seemed to feel that there was a lot lacking in the agreement that was presented to us as well. So I think although everybody, including the businesses, think conceptually it's a good idea, this may not be the time to go forward with it. It is a new company. It's a pilot program. I know the city manager may like to make a comment on this as well, but it just seems like it may be a good idea, but not necessarily now.
Mr. Douthwaite, do you have additional comments?
The city attorney has 2 substantive concerns with the proposed contract, neither of which proposed changes have been agreed to by the company. The first concern is the term of the contract. It's a 3-year contract, and if we should decide during the term of that they're not performing up to our expectations, or we don't have the kind of participation from the local businesses that we would be satisfied with, we're on the hook for the full 3 years. We can't cancel with 60 days notice and terminate the rest of the contract. So we're into this for the full 3-year term. And the second concern she has is the automatic rollover provision. The contract says that at the end of the 3rd year, we have to give them notice within 60 days to cancel, and if we don't, it automatically rolls over for an additional year. And that puts some burden on the staff with respect to monitoring that timeline and getting it back to the council. And if we miss that 60-day window, we're on the hook for the following year as well. And we've got a concern about that. One issue that's not necessarily legal, but maybe a staff issue, that is the issue of control of content. Because it's the city's contract and because they feed off of our website, we do have control of the content that's placed there. But from an administrative point of view, that may be difficult to enforce on a weekly or monthly basis, whereby these kinds of websites can change on a daily basis, and we might have a problem staying up with that to determine whether the content is appropriate or not. I had a discussion with Alderman Roy Wesley earlier this week, who I believe told me that he had checked one of the websites in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, I believe.
Yes.
And there wasn't the level of participation in that website that we might have been led to believe we would have. And Alderman Wesley can elaborate on that. But given the legal issues, given the fact it's a startup company, it's a pilot program, I think we're probably more prudent to take a pass at this stage of the game, see how it works out, and revisit this at a later date.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
I've been watching Cottage Grove website for since it's come up. I asked Ross for the, which one is a live program. And that week was the first time they went live. To this date, there has not been a business yet that has put their coupons up there or anything else. And that first week that we went, the website was live there, you type in the search for category, such as landscapers, you didn't get nothing. It didn't go anywhere. So in that case, I don't think this, I agree with the city manager that we should scratch this right now and make it, do we need a motion on that? I'll make a motion to scratch it for the time being.
So your motion is to concur with staff and not move forward with this program at this time. I'll ask for a second, then I'll call a question. Is there a second? I'll make the second. Alderman Winger.
A couple questions. I understand now. I mean, if the other pilot isn't working, you know, then obviously we got to see a little more activity before we do this. But that company had said we're going to take the phone book essentially and upload it. Or so they didn't upload anything on that Cottage Grove site. Is that what you're saying?
All they did was list the businesses, it seems like, that were in their town, and that's all they did.
And how long have you been watching that?
Well, it's been 2 weeks, right? For 2 weeks now.
Okay, can I follow up?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so then, okay, that's not very long to make a decision on, in my opinion. And I know, Mr. Forrest, you walked up and down and polled the businesses and talked to several of them, and they were interested, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Pretty much without exception.
Okay, and when we're looking at this contract, I know the attorney has this 3-year provision issue, and however, that total dollar amount that we're exposed on this, it's like minimal. If no one uses it, the price actually doesn't expand that much, if I recall correctly. What are we looking at as the maximum exposure on the 3-year, let's say if we're stuck in 3 years?
$3,000 plus or minus for the initial subscription fee, and I believe it was $100 or $125 a month, $125 a month. So $125 a month times 36 months plus the $3,000 startup is our investment, about $7,000. And if this thing should take off and we decide in 2 years we want to get back in, then the subscription fee would probably double.
Right.
But you know, that's our downstroke, if you will, is the $7,000 that we'd be obligated to get in on the pilot program.
Over 3 years, we're looking at $2,300 a year, or however that spreads out. 7,000 over 3 years.
And they've agreed to extend this deadline date to May the 7th. So, you know, we're not telling you have to make a decision this week. We have another couple weeks if you still want to chew on this a little bit.
Yeah, I say we do look at this. I mean, over 3 years, it's total of $7,000. The businesses want this. Let's give them something for the licenses they pay into. Let's give them a service that can help them flourish at least somewhat in a down economy. The economy is down, sales tax is down, and we need to take steps forward. At least let's try some things. Other communities are offering grants for businesses to come in. At least this is a way to take the existing businesses we have and try and help them. And then also there was a rollover provision after that second year. That was the other issue the attorney had, correct?
There's an automatic rollover at the end of the 3 years. If we don't give them notification within 60 days of the end of that 3-year period, it automatically rolls itself over for another year.
Okay.
So we'd have to monitor that and 2 years and 10 months from now have to make that decision.
Yeah, and to that, I would say we've been all over our website since, I mean, Mr. Murmas does a great job watching that, and as well as, I think, Mr. Celia. And it's our job to do these things, to watch contracts. So this is all part of, I believe, standard operating procedures that we need to know when our contracts are up and that sort of thing. So I'm not scared off on that one either. Thank you.
Mr. Forrest, did you have a comment?
I did, and I totally agree with Alderman Winger. And, you know, that, again, staff is trying to come up with ways to help the businesses in town. I think conceptually everybody agrees here that this is a great idea, and, you know, which is part of the reason that we brought it to you so quickly. I apologize. There was some miscommunication about, you know, the drop dead date that we had to sign up, which has subsequently been extended. But I would like to, other than the couple issues that the city attorney has, as I say, I did speak with somebody who, you know, is a consultant, used to be in this line of work, and there are several things that we would, I think to be prudent, want to add to the contract, such as certain time deadlines that they have to perform certain things on the website, so that we don't sign up for this and 2 months after we sign up, we're in the same position Cottage Grove is. You basically just have a yellow pages that lists the business. We need definite you know, schedule from them when the site's going to be up, when everybody's going to be listed, when everybody's, you know, coupons are going to be on, when their photos are going to be on. So I think it's more than just these couple items that the city attorney has with the contract that we really need to negotiate with this company.
Sure. So we would keep this going with them, the dialogue and getting the contract correct, in other words, is essentially what we could do. Is that right? Okay.
Alderman Police?
I mean, I like the idea. Some of the legal stuff I'm sure can be worked out. But John, I think me and you had a brief conversation on this. Isn't something here possibly be done in-house? I mean, we're basically adding a tab on the city's website, and we can put all the businesses down, and somehow, you know, I'm not computer savvy, so I don't know what it entails or whatnot, but I'm sure we can put all the businesses on the website with a tab, and something can be done in-house along the same lines. I don't know if it's going to be that